Thanks, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for attending the December Sustainability Advisory Commission meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Michelle, will you call the roll, please?
Tomas Delgado. Stacy Gloss.
Here.
Jessica Lemkel.
Here.
Andrew Stump.
Here.
Luke Westhooker. Morgan White. Grace Wilkin.
Here.
Okay, great. Thank you for calling the roll. We do have a quorum this evening, so we'll go ahead and proceed with business. First up is approval of minutes from the October 3rd meeting. Those minutes were included in your, let me actually make sure, were they in the packet or were they only emailed as an attachment to us?
They're only in the email. I think that's pretty standard.
Is that standard?
Yeah, they're usually not public until they're approved.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the clarification. I'm getting used to the new system. Yeah, so you did receive that over email. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Jess. Any discussion or corrections for the October 3rd minutes? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. Alrighty, so next on the agenda this evening is Susan Monty, who is going to be sharing information with us about the proposed and in motion household hazardous waste station. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are so excited to hear about your presentation.
Susan, would you make sure the little green light's on your mic and you can move it closer? Thank you.
Good evening. As I said, I'm Susan Monty, Executive Director of Champaign County Environmental Stewards. And I think I've met most of you. And I think it's been about a year since I've made a presentation about this project, so lots has happened. And I'm not sure if everyone here is not new. Were you all here about a year ago? Okay, then I'll just go quickly through some of these sections. But yeah, let's start. You can see your screen from wherever you are. So our mission and our current projects are listed on this slide. And our current projects, the largest one of which is to establish the HHW collection facility and then find funds to operate it and manage it. The other two projects are to develop a local pre-consumer commercial food scrap compost pilot program, and then to seek support to launch a glass bottle container drop-off collection program. Because as we all know, glass is 100% recyclable. And most people realize that household hazardous waste has these characteristics of hazardous waste, and it's not really smart to have a bunch of that in your home being stored or in your garage or basement. I like to share this slide because the IEPA sponsored one-day household hazardous waste collections started here in Champaign County in 1987. It's not even shown on this chart. We had the very first one-day household hazardous waste collection here in Champaign. So that was sort of neat trivia to unearth. But this slide brings home the point that the interval between one-day collections was getting out of hand. In fact, by 2012, we had waited 6 years for that one-day collection, and then the next collection did not happen, as my records show, until 2021. So that's just incredible. Thankfully, there are different people at Illinois EPA in charge of this program. And thankfully, In 2020, Champaign County was named as a hub site where every year we're at least guaranteed a one-day collection, which is wonderful, better than it was. So also I want to point out that I've mentioned, and you know, that our project is to establish a household hazardous waste collection facility. We would be working with Illinois EPA because they are the generator of those. They are going to be participant in how that facility is operated. They will provide transportation and processing costs for all of the HHW collected. Everybody knows HHW stands for household hazardous waste, right? Okay. And so there are materials that are prohibited, and this list is current, and in about 2 years it'll be out of date. The reason I say that is because the first thing under prohibited materials is latex paint. And just this year, the Illinois General Assembly, after years of other organizations such as the Illinois Product Stewardship Council working to promote and advance latex paint recycling, finally a Paint Stewardship Act was passed this year. And so latex paint can be collected and recycled starting in the year 2025 here in Illinois. Just similar as the program to collect residential electronics works. This will be a similar program where the manufacturers of paint sold in Illinois will pay for the processing and collection of that, maybe not the collection, but the transportation and processing of that latex paint. So the household hazardous waste collection facility will be able to accept latex paint in addition to oil-based paint. Even though latex paint is recyclable, it's not hazardous. It's the same, it's under the Stewardship Act. This will be a convenience to residents, and we expect that the household hazardous waste facility will be a collection point for latex paint as well. Sorry for that long-winded explanation, but another thing I want to point out is that some of these prohibited items, such as fire extinguishers or propane tanks, I've seen the facilities in northern Illinois that make arrangements with local vendors to be able, for example, to have people bring their fire extinguishers to the collection center. But that's all down the road in the future once this facility is operational, and we may decide we want to work with some local vendors to expand the list of accepted stuff. That would not go to IEPA, it would go to those local vendors, but just thought I'd mention that. Lead-acid batteries is in that category too. So I like this slide. You've seen it before probably, but it really drives home the point that there's no easy place that residents here in East Central Illinois and Champaign County can go to bring their household hazardous waste items to a facility other than the one-day collection events. The closest facility is Naperville, and that's 2.5 to 3 hours distance of driving. The newest facility is in southwest Illinois in Madison County. So now we have 5 in the state. And I'd just like to remind people that in 2018, the Mahomet Aquifer Protection Task Force 2018 report identified inadequate or improper household hazardous waste management as one of 6 contamination threats to the water quality of the Mahomet Aquifer. And that just investing in the collection of, improving the collection of HHW will be an investment in protecting the aquifer. I like to think of it that way. I also use this list, which is incredible. There's 8 ways that household hazardous waste poses a risk, and to have a collection center for collecting household hazardous waste would decrease the risks in these ways. Not only groundwater and surface water contamination would be lessened, the risk of that, but accidental poisonings and other medical problems from hazardous chemical exposure, from HHW-initiated or accelerated house fires, the danger to firefighters being exposed to the hazardous chemicals and the smoke, solid waste workers, exposure to improperly disposed chemicals, and damage to solid waste infrastructure, such as the trucks facilities and even the landfill liner. Not a certainty, but a possibility. Whoops, excuse me. The wastewater treatment plant upsets happen, and upset and damage to residential septic systems. So all of these things would be less, all of the risks of these problems would be lessened. So our nonprofit organization has started its capital campaign after conducting a planning and feasibility study last year, which ended in January of this year. And since that feasibility study ended, we've been busy. We purchased a 4.78 acre vacant parcel, which I'll tell you about in the next slide. It's located in Urbana, so I'll be working with Marcus and his staff to work through the permitting process for that part of it. And it's right adjacent to the transfer station, Republic Transfer Station, and right across the street from Henson Disposal, which is a construction and demo debris facility. So it's like a waste management subdivision. It's a great location, isn't it? It's just great. In fact, I looked at this site about 5 years ago before any planning started, and it was just there, and I thought, that would make a good site. And there it was. We got it. And I'll just give you a little history. We did start off looking for a building that was existing to retrofit, but everything we found was really substandard as far as no water and sewer, not close enough to the central densely populated part of the county, and buildings themselves were in disrepair, so much so that the retrofit cost was incredible. So we decided to shift gears a bit and to instead look for a vacant parcel and then work to construct not a high-cost facility if possible. But we are very, very concerned about safety, so we will not cut corners in that regard at all. We have been meeting with Illinois Senators Chapin Rose and Paul Faraci, Senator Paul Faraci, and we've had 2 meetings with Senator Paul Faraci and 1 meeting with Senator Chapin Rose so far. The current legislative session is over, and so we will continue to meet with them. The reason we're meeting with them is to try to get some state funding for the capital costs, to cover a portion of the capital costs. We have worked on developing a marketing and communications program, which I will be sharing with our board at our next meeting. And it's going to go a long way to make our organization more visible and recognizable, and be able to more effectively share information about this household hazardous waste collection facility project. Also, we are planning to develop a fundraising model that will carry our organization forward for the next 5 or so years. So the site, as I mentioned, is right there on North Lincoln Avenue, and I think you all know where the transfer station is. It's north of, Max is located closer to I-74, and this is a little bit further, like maybe a half mile further. This is the saline ditch, and this photo shows or image shows the floodplain boundaries, and you can see the site only has a sliver on the south border boundary in that floodplain, and it's easy to still use the site very effectively with a setback that will have sufficient distance from that. This retention pond is huge, 8-acre pond, but the slope is very steep, and so we're well out of way of that retention pond. If it ever even elevates a bit or a lot, I think it's safe to say this was well constructed when it was developed. So I wanted to share more about the project itself and the cost of the project and what we're looking for in total. Calculations about 8 months ago were that low range and high range for the capital costs, working with an architect who provided preliminary cost figures for at least the building part of it and site improvement part. So added on to that the permitting costs and capital costs, other capital costs, legal costs. Bottom line is we're looking at $2,487,000, which this December, hopefully, from our architect, we will get more final cost estimates that are more fine-tuned, and this figure could change. So we're hoping it doesn't change more than 10%. Either way, could go down, it could go up, but I would expect it to go up, if at all. So also have estimates about the operations costs, annual operating costs for this facility, and those came in at $173,000. I just rounded up to $175,000 here, and that would include a part-time facility manager, a part-time laborer, and a part-time administrator. So those costs have been worked out, and also, of course, a hazardous waste contractor who would be at the site whenever it is open and receiving household hazardous waste from residents. And that would be at least 2 times a month. And if we wanted more than that, we could add to this operational cost and probably get more. We could get 3 times a month, for example. Most facilities here in Illinois, there's only 5, are open twice a month at present. And I mentioned that Illinois EPA will be responsible for the transport and processing of the household hazardous waste that is collected at the facility once it's, during the operations cost covers the hazardous waste contractors who accept the stuff from residents driving up, dropping it off, and then they sort it, categorize it, and safely package it so it can be temporarily stored at the facility until the right amount for contacting the Illinois EPA hazardous waste contractor who is under contract with the IEPA to pick up these items and bring them to their final destination. So that cost will be provided by the Illinois EPA. So we are working with a capital campaign consultant, Protopis Associates, who Grace has met, not any of you others. And we have been working since August to prepare for the capital campaign, do the pre-campaign types of planning. And this consultant has recommended that we divide and conquer, look for some funding from the state, which I always do and I'm still going to do, but that's what those meetings with Senator Rose and Chapin were for. Chapin, did I say, I repeated his name in a different way. I meant to say Senator Chapin Rose and Senator Paul Faraci, those meetings. Those will continue during this next session. And we will continue to look for additional local government funding from places we haven't received it from yet. We have received funding, as you'll see on the next slide, from Urbana and others. And then, of course, public phase of our camp. Well, actually, there's a silent phase of our campaign that's coming up, and a public phase where we will reach out, a broad-based community kind of campaign solicitation. We have received to date $1,075,000, and from the county and city of Urbana, those were American Rescue Plan Act funds, and the city of Champaign had already allocated their ARPA funding, so they dipped into their general fund and provided $250,000, which we are very, very happy about. So this final slide is just where we are now, kind of status of our campaign. And so at the end of 2023, at the end of this December, we will have spent $573 towards costs to purchase the property, hire and work with an architect and the capital campaign consultant, and incidental legal kind of costs. And so we've spent that much money. We started off with $1,075,000, and so we have estimated remaining capital project cost is $1,571,000 at a low estimate, or nearly $2 million at a high estimate. So we still have some revenue, and adding that together, we have this much to raise yet, at least. We have just over $1 million left to raise, and the higher end of that range would be $1,400,000. So this represents just a snapshot of where we are at the present time. The numbers are all estimates, and they can fluctuate either way. So I've started building in contingencies to these estimates so that it can handle slight adjustments. So that's the end of my PowerPoint type of presentation, and happy to try to answer any questions you may have about this project or others.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Grace?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I love the slides. I was wondering if we could have a copy of those as
Yes.
well. Thank you. And then I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how people could get involved with Champaign County Environmental Stewards and support these projects if they would like to.
Excellent question. Thank you. Well, presently, our needs for volunteers relate to finding, for example, a replacement board member, one with skills that relate. We are looking for a new treasurer for our organization. So that's one way. If anybody knows a person who would like to be involved as a treasurer, I am looking for a treasurer, and that's wonderful if that would happen through word of mouth, reference, stuff like that. Otherwise, we are looking for also to recruit certain members for our capital campaign. So anybody who has an interest in having a shorter term kind of commitment, that would be through September, for example. But of course, a treasurer would have like a 2-year term. So these are major commitments and very specific requests, I realize. But we have other projects that are very exciting. I tend to think they're all exciting. But for example, food scrap, anybody that is passionate about that and wants to become involved, feel free to go to our website, reach out and contact us. And we have a task force or a committee that works to try to implement these projects depending on the funding we have. And for example, food scrap, we're looking for a way to implement some of our funding that we have for that. And yeah, we're looking for volunteers who may be interested in glass bottle recycling. We have a board member who leads up a committee about that. And yeah, that's an interesting project to get involved with. Of course, household hazardous waste is, I mentioned already, we have a capital campaign going on for that, and that's the best way for volunteers to get involved with that project. On our website, we're going to implement some updates, and one of the updates is to have, how do I get involved? How can I help? And there'll be a list of opportunities there. We have every year events that happen, like Pumpkin Smash happens every November right after Halloween. We have tire collections that happen every 2 years. So those are the kind of one-time community collection type projects that could happen, and we always use volunteers for those. But our website will be containing and including a list for volunteer activities that people can help with. Thank you.
And then one more question, Susan. If people were looking to make a donation, tax-deductible donation before the end of the year, that's also on the website, right, and tax-deductible?
Yes, that is very true. On our website, you can make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for asking. That's one way to support us and get involved, is to provide us money.
Thank you so much, Susan. I
All right.
appreciate the presentation.
Yeah.
Yep. Sure, can I? Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I worked that out because a lot of municipalities are working on their budgets for the next year, and I had to answer that question. So I did as best I could estimate of the operations date, and I came up with April of 2026, plus or minus 6 months. This month, I hope to pin that down because I need to get answers from the Illinois EPA, from our architect, and from the city permitting because some of those timelines can be concurrent. They could even happen during our capital campaign. some of the architectural drawings can happen and construction drawings can happen concurrent with that. In fact, I was hoping tonight I would have the preliminary renderings and concept footprint, building footprint, but they were not available yet. So
What construction start date is that based on-ish?
it's really fluid. I just thought, in my mind, what can overlap and what can happen, I'm being redundant here. So I need to pin that down.
Okay.
Construction wouldn't start until all the permitting happens, of course, so.
So like fall of '24 or just like?
Now, you're asking about construction, then,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
All right, so, construction only happens after site approval.
Right.
Site approval doesn't happen until permitting from the IEPA. So there's all this sequencing that happens. I really don't have a solid construction date. That's why then you have winter, you know, which
Right.
will impact concrete stuff. So, that's why I gave the April of 2026. It could be sooner than that, or it could be later than that.
And the
That's
April
the operations date,
r-
so.
to starting actual collections? Okay, thank you.
It will get better. I'm gonna pin this
Sure,
down
this is a big
somehow.
project. Nobody expects
A
you
lot of
to
moving pieces,
have a
right?
crystal ball. Planners don't expect you to have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
I have a question about, I know that it'll be located in Urbana. Would it be restricted to only Champaign County residents?
Great
Or
question, yeah.
how, if someone lived in Danville or Bloomington, are they able to come over and utilize the site and services?
Most definitely, this facility will be open to all Illinois residents, and that's because the Illinois EPA is helping and being a part of the process as far as managing the materials at the end of this process. So they will assume generator status on all the facilities. There's only 4 or 5 in Illinois. They're all open to all Illinois residents. In fact, I'm going to be going to our neighboring counties and municipalities asking for their support as well. Good question, though.
Thank you. Jess, it looked like you had a question, maybe.
Yeah, I was just gonna say thank you so much for your work and great presentation, so much good information in there. One question that I had was, like, what days would they think, what days are usually open for the facilities, and what are y'all thinking for that?
Well, I should have brought my copy of the operations cost estimate, which has a lot of detail on it. I believe I asked for at least one Saturday and one weekday, but I might, I just don't remember what I asked for. That's probably what I asked for each month.
I think that's a great idea, because that kind of meets the needs of everybody.
Right.
So, awesome.
Like, for example, the Naperville facility is only open on Saturday and Sundays, which, I'm not gonna, that's still great, but
Helpful.
what about weekdays? So,
Yeah.
good question.
And I just had one other question. So for the waste, then, like, where does it go?
Yeah.
I know that's a really big question.
I get that question almost every
it's
meeting. You'd
different
think by now I'd
places.
have that chart with me that shows the disposition of each of these categories of hazardous waste. And now, so Illinois EPA is going to be working with their contracted hazardous waste contract company. It's probably going to be Heritage Environmental Services. And so I remember, years ago when I did the report in 2016, what happens to when Heritage takes these materials. They have facilities that accept all this, and they bring a lot of it goes to be incinerated at a plant in Ohio. This is all regulated. It's all according to RCRA standards, and it's what happens with hazardous waste here in the U.S., so it's nothing unusual. Some of it gets chemically treated to be reused, and very, very little of it gets landfilled. I don't think, so I have a chart. I'd be happy to share it with this commission for your information. Any other questions?
Sure, I have, thank you,
Hi.
Susan, for,
Yeah, hi. I met Andrew at the Pumpkin Smash.
so would you consider like a fee for drop-off? a possibility?
Yeah, that question comes up too, and right now in Illinois, that's not part of what happens, except for perhaps the television. This facility will also serve as a program collection site, replacing the twice-a-year residential electronics collections that happen in the parking lot at Parkland. So this would be open more regularly. And some of the places that do this around the state do charge a fee for televisions, but this hasn't been discussed yet. Certainly not for the HHW at this point. We would accept contributions, that does happen at each of these program collection sites. That was something I noticed, that the St. Louis, Missouri facility accepts contributions and welcomes contributions. And that same thing happens at some of the one-day collections where cash is accepted as a contribution. These things cost money, as we all know.
Just thinking if you're accepting maybe people from Indiana or something.
Oh, no, well, apparently that's out of the question.
Okay.
You're gonna have to have relatives in Illinois to use this facility. I wanted to use the St. Louis, Missouri facility, but I was not able to sign up for that, just to see what would happen.
And,
Different states, you know.
and we talked about geothermal and actually you could use the pond beside the,
Oh, really?
Yep.
See, I don't know anything about how that actually would work. I was thinking in-ground, but,
a lot cheaper because you don't have, it's just putting heat exchanger in
oh
the
my
pond.
goodness, well, I have something to talk about now with the architect. So,
Probably use solar panels, I imagine.
yeah, I don't want to be sounding like I'm going to be spending a lot of money, not me, but on this project, we have to be very thrifty because we want to,
And DOE, Department of Energy has funding for nonprofits.
oh, great information you're giving me. So, Department of Energy, yes. For nonprofits, I will look at that immediately. Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right. Good information.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. All right, next on our agenda is the staff report, so I'm just going to read that tonight since Scott is not here. First, the geothermal Urbana-Champaign program. The bulk geothermal program currently has 11 contracts for 82 tons. The vendor is having a lot of success installing air source heat pumps at properties where the geothermal wells cannot fit, totaling 25 tons of capacity. This surpassed the second declining block price. So the way that these programs work is that there are rebates involved and prices decrease for systems the more consumers sign up to take advantage of the program. So additional rebates are now available for participants at $400 per ton of installed capacity. So great work there. On nature and urban biodiversity, Illinois now has available a Specialty Protect Monarchs license plate. The initial plate purchase provides $10 to the Department of Natural Resources Roadside Monarch Habitat Fund. And upon license plate renewal, $23 is allocated to the fund. The solar program for Urbana-Champaign, bulk solar has 25 contracts this year at 190 kilowatts. The program got a late start this year. It may still hit a second benchmark. I'm not sure when that program is concluding this year. Landscape Recycling Center, after Halloween, Champaign County Environmental Stewards volunteers helped 57 carloads compost pumpkins at the LRC. They estimated 3,500 pounds of pumpkins collected, which was more than double the weight of pumpkins collected last year. So congratulations to the organizers of that. Students for Environmental Concerns from campus delivered 200 pumpkins to the LRC. Using an average pumpkin weight of 8 pounds, that was 1,600 pounds of pumpkins collected by Students for Environmental Concerns and then brought to the site. So I'll just pause right there if anyone has any comments, questions, or updates.
So for the geothermal program, we were, the program was presented at a national webinar by John Freitag, colleague who was working with us. Got a lot of interest. Chicago project or program that's based on this one is being subscribed to. So I guess this year's installations are the most so far.
I think the pumpkin smash was summarized well, but just wanted to reiterate, thanks for our partnership with us at the SAC and Andy and Luke for coming out and getting to partner with Susan and others at the Champaign County Environmental Stewards. It's always great to get new people out to the Landscape Recycling Center who haven't been there before, and people who are making this an annual thing now that it's our second time. And so hope it can continue, and feel free to let us know any notes on ways to keep improving for the future.
And Grace, was there a set date? Like, is it the whatever weekend after, or?
Yeah, we've been doing the Saturday after Halloween, wherever that falls, early November, yeah, 4th or 5th the past few years.
Something else that I had asked Scott to include in the report, but because the data isn't in yet, is just how much yard waste is diverted from landfills by participating in this year's yard waste pickup. So I heard that the last weekend for that was just basically this past weekend, and so the numbers are not yet in yet. So we should have at our next meeting a report on participation rates and the amount of yard waste generated and produced and dropped off at LRC this year. All right, last thing that is on our agenda tonight is the Sustainability Advisory Commission schedule for 2024. The packet includes the dates for February, March, April, May, June, August, October, and December, with months off of July because of the 4th of July holiday, September because of Labor Day, and then November because of the voting schedule and how the city council meetings are moved back a day, which means that we get bumped from the space. So we have 8 meetings scheduled on this schedule. And we do, as a body, need to vote on that. So first, let me see if there is any move to approve the 2024 schedule.
I move to approve the 2024 schedule.
I will second.
All right, thanks, Jess. Are there any questions or amendments to these dates that the members present would like to propose?
I was confessing that I hadn't checked all of them. I was just quickly making sure they were Tuesdays, assuming they were. Is April 1st a Monday in 2024? Should April be the 2nd then?
Yes.
Checking real quick that the rest of them were Tuesdays because I hadn't gone through them all. Yeah, I think they look good. I don't know if others are scouring a calendar real quick, just if we got eyes on it. I think the rest all looked good. So we just need to change April to the 2nd unless there was an intentional Monday.
That wasn't intentional. They should be on Tuesdays.
March 4th is a Monday also.
Ah, okay.
Oh, thank you. Dates are weird.
They are
Good teamwork here. Thanks, Noah.
4th, April 1st. We move by one day.
Do you want me to redo my? As submitted.
Yeah, I was just looking at 10/1. Is that Tuesday and then 12/3? Okay. So yeah, if you'd like to go ahead and just amend the motion, I don't know the right way to do it.
I propose amending the motion to the new dates that we picked out.
Okay, so we're voting on the 2024 Sustainability Advisory Commission schedule with the dates of March 4th moved to March 5th and April 1st moved to April 2nd to reflect that we meet on the first Tuesday of these months. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks for approving the calendar for next year. And with that, I don't have any other business before the commission tonight, so we can call it an early night. All right, thanks, everybody.